Hi, it's Adrienne from Adrienne's Couch again, and I'm going to demonstrate for you today how to begin a shawl using a garter stitch tab, such as that in the Haruni Shawl by Emily Ross. I decided to make this video because there are a lot of other shawls that start with a garter stitch tab, and they can be really confusing. The instructions can be really confusing if you've never made them before. So you can use this video if you're making a shawl that starts from the edge and goes outwards into a triangular shape. So this is the diagram from the Haruni Shawl pattern, and you can see that it's the point of the triangle is pointing upwards in this case. And what I'm going to demonstrate from you is actually this part, the very beginning, which is the garter stitch tab. Now the tab starts off where you cast on this edge right here. So you're going to work in this direction, cast on with a provisional cast on, worked upwards, and then you're going to leave stitches at the end here on your needle, turn your work 90 degrees, pick up stitches from this edge, and then turn your work again, remove the provisional cast on, and add those stitches to your needle. So you're going to start here, work in this direction, leave those stitches on, turn your work, pick up stitches from the edge of the work you just finished, and then turn your work once more and remove the stitches at the end. To make a garter stitch tab for a triangular shawl like the Haruni shawl, you need to start off with a provisional cast on. And I'm going to show you the crochet provisional cast on because it's probably the easiest one to do. So what you do is you create a crocheted chain, and if you don't know how to crochet, you start off with a slip stitch. Obviously you use a crochet hook. Place it onto your crochet hook, and then you basically loop the yarn around the crochet hook and pull it through. And you just keep doing that again and again until you've made a whole chain of stitches. Okay, and for the Haruni shawl it requires a cast on of 3 stitches, but I'm going to make a crochet chain a bit longer than that just because it's a little easier to handle. So that's about, I don't know, 7 stitches or so. And what you do is you are going to cut that working yarn, and then you're going to pull that last loop all the way through. Okay, so now you have a chain, and when you look at your chain you can see it's a series of V's, and when I turn it on its side, on the back, you can see these little bumps. It's kind of like a little caterpillar. And we're going to use 3 of those bumps to cast on 3 stitches. We're going to use 3 in a row. So I'll probably use this one, and this one. So then I need to take the yarn that I'm going to be working my project with, and so this is kind of a thicker yarn, but I'm hoping you can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to pull 3 loops through these little bumps on the back of this crochet chain. And I'm going to go and use my crochet hook to do that because I find it easier to hook them through. So I'm going to insert my hook through this little bump here, like this. There we go. And pull my working yarn through. Insert my hook to the next bump. And pull my working yarn through. And through the next bump. And pull through. Okay, so now I've got 3 stitches sitting on a crochet hook, but this is knitting, so I'm going to have to put it onto a knitting needle. So I'm going to slide my stitches to the end of my crochet hook, and I'm actually going to, instead of sliding them straight on like this, I'm actually going to flip them around, because when I pull my loops through using a crochet hook, the stitches end up sitting backwards. So I'm just going to flip them around as I'm putting them onto my needle. Okay? Now you'll notice this first stitch here is really loose. It's because it's not really anchored to anything. So the key is to keep just giving this a little tug to keep it from sliding off the needle. So now I have 3 stitches. They're sitting neatly on this little crocheted chain. And now I'm going to start knitting my garter stitch tab. Now to do that, the instructions in the shawl for the Haruni shawl is to slip the first stitch and then knit the next 2. For the first row, I recommend just knitting it because you need to anchor these stitches. So I'm going to knit the first row totally. Now you see what I mean about that first stitch getting really loose? Just knit it and tighten that up a bit. There. Okay. First row, then we're going to knit the second row. And you slip the first stitch knitwise like this with the yarn at the back. And then knit. And then knit again. Okay. Now the reason for all this slipping of stitches is that it makes a nice neat edge, the selvage edge it's called, and then it means then that you don't have all these garter bumps along the edge, which I'll show you a bit later on. Okay, so that's 3 rows, and you're going to keep doing that until you reach 6 rows of garter stitch. Okay, so now I've knitted my 6 rows of garter stitch. Excuse me. And when you look at my work here, if I stretch it a little bit, you can see that I've got a whole bunch of little bumps there. Okay, I've got a row of bumps here under my fingernail, my thumbnail, a second row here, and a second row at the bottom. So the instructions are next to rotate the work 90 degrees, like this, and you're going to pick up 3 stitches along this edge. And then we're going to remove this provisional cast on and pick up the 3 stitches that are sitting there waiting for us to use. And you can probably make them out there. I've got one here, got another one here, and I've got a third one here. Okay. Now to pick up the stitches along the edge of the work, you want to do it in a manner that will not stretch the work and that will not make holes. And the best way to do that is to insert your needle through these thick ridges here. And it doesn't even really matter if you split the yarn or anything like that, because really you just want to make sure they're secure. Now what you're supposed to do is actually insert your needle through and pick up a stitch, but I find that impossible. I mean, I started off crocheting, and I always come back to my crochet hooks because to me it's always easier to use a hook to pull things through. So I'm going to insert my hook through the edge, and I'm going to pull a stitch through. That's 1. Insert into the edge, pull a stitch through. That's 2, and insert into the edge one more time. Like this, and pull the stitch through. So now I've got 3 stitches in my crochet hook again. I can go ahead and pop those onto my needle. Okay. Now I have 6 stitches. The 3 that I started with, and the 3 that I picked up along the side of the work. Now I need to get these stitches at the bottom from when I first cast on. Now the thing that you probably would want to do is take off the chain and then pick up the stitches. But that's a really good way to lose your stitches, I think, especially if you've never done this before. So what I like to do is get another needle of the same size of as you're using, and actually insert it through those stitches and hold them on the needle so that you don't lose them. So I'm going to insert my hook through the first loop, the first hole, okay, just so you can see them. This is the first one, here's the second one, just in the middle, and here's the third one. So I'm going to just go ahead and pop my needle through those stitches so I do not lose them. They're ready, okay? And then what I need to do is unravel this chain. Now to do that, you do it from the end that you finished with, and sometimes you forget which side that is. It doesn't really matter. I mean, pick at them both. It'll come out. So this is the end I actually finished with. So I'm going to just unravel it and just pull it out. Like that. There. So now I have 3 stitches sitting there, and I can go ahead and pop them onto my working needle. Come on, there we go. So there's 1, 2, and 3. So now I have a total of 9 stitches. 3 from when I was knitting, 3 that I picked up on the side, and 3 that were from the bottom. Now if I go back to my original diagram of this project, when I place my work on here, the first 3 stitches are going to be this side of the work. Okay, they will always be in garter stitch. The middle stitches are going to create the main part of the work. They're going to start off here and eventually get bigger and bigger and bigger because you'll be increasing throughout the project. The last 3 stitches that you picked up from the provisional cast on will be the left side of the work, and they will also be worked in garter stitch as the first 3 stitches are. So that's how you do the garter stitch tab, and we end up with enough stitches that give us our border, our border edges, and then the middle of the stitches become the main part of the work. There you are.